Hey there, welcome to episode 42 of the FFS Talk audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. I will warn you right now, the smoke in all of the air in Vegas, the Vegas area, is a smoky, stinky mess. And it is most definitely having an impact on my already tenuous, allergic voice. So bear with me as I wander through this episode, hoping my voice will last. Today we are speaking about fact versus fiction. So timely with a presidential debate just gone by. So much talking about the internet and video clips and excerpts and who said what, who claimed what, who checked what. And that was on the eve of the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center in Pennsylvania and the Pentagon. Interesting times these. I actually did a Quaggling Sand episode yesterday. Today is September 12th. So yesterday being the actual September 11 anniversary. Reflecting on, waking up that morning, having just moved back to Arizona from Silicon Valley. Not sure, what am I listening to in the old clock radio, waking me up, and that I turned my TV on and probably didn't turn it off for a month, and all that has ensued, looking through a pandemic lens. What does it mean to get facts from the internets? What does it mean to be an expert, etc. So today, in keeping with the general theme of the FFS Talk program, what works, what doesn't, those are sort of blended together here. And then what can we do about it? And I'm going to give you some foreshadowing right now. Not much. So yes, fact versus fiction. FFS Talk is indeed, like I said, an audio program about what works and what doesn't. Someday I will try to get some guests. I actually began this audio program right around the pandemic time, somewhere, not when it started, but after, at some point. And it has always been a solo show. I'd like to change that at some point. I have some tea in a mug. It's pretty hot right now. Egyptian licorice and black tea mixed together. It's pretty good. So we'll see if it helps. In the meantime, let's get started. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you have an episode description, which will contain some show notes. There's a summary that I will read to you, and there's the two normal shameless self-promotion links, and then three links where two of them are for fun, really, or to think about, and then one Wikipedia link about falsifiability. My voice is already fighting with me, so let's see how it goes. So let's begin then. The summary of today's episode. It is indeed the season of fiction over fact for at least the next 2 months or so. That's leading up to national election here in the U.S. But in general, this is a time when more people are connected to more data and more information. That is just in general, not regarding the election, but over the years, pocket technology, Wi-Fi, cell data is only getting faster. We are always connected. So connected to more data and information than ever, all the time, with almost no delay, yet we rely almost completely, really, on others to tell us their version of some truth that fits perhaps their narrative. Can facts rule again, please? Almost getting through here. The links for today's episode, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. In the interest of preserving some voice bandwidth, you don't have to spend any money. Links to my other audio programs and other projects. These are links commonly used for open source projects and whatnot, so I make use of them mostly for this engagement. Don't feel like you have to spend any money there. So shameless self-promotion has come to an end. James Burke Connections. The reason it's a Wikipedia link, but it's about the British TV series that James Burke did forever ago. You will be, since the episodes are about history and the connections between different events and discoveries and so on that lead up to some modern day, modern day being within the last 50 years is still really interesting. So it's a completely fascinating and well done show. Of course, it will be an old square television, probably since it was a British TV series sourced in PAL. I'm sure it was converted over to NTSC for America, but you'll get whatever you get if you do choose to check it out. I absolutely recommend watching them. Completely fascinating. The reason I'm saying that is because James Burke goes through and connects the dots. That's an expression you hear now and then. Connects the dots through history. So it brings you from some seemingly unrelated series of events from, hundreds, millions of years ago, and brings it up to, and that's where the ballpoint pen comes from, or whatever, right? So definitely worth checking out. And it's a representation of what it means to actually hunt down facts and to construct the truth that can be derived from connecting them in ways that actually make sense. So check it out. It's not a plug. It's just happens to be appropriate. There's a bonus. It's a YouTube short, although you can find longer versions. During one of his video productions, he was at Cape Canaveral. He was walking along, speaking. If you get some of the longer clips, I've seen 2.5, 3 minute clips, so it gives you more of a run up. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but it is, if you just look for best time TV shot ever or some variation on that, it's worth checking out. The short, I think, is like 1.5 minutes, maybe a little over. No, the end of the short is him commenting on it. So the money shot, if you will, is like less than a minute. So worth checking out. But the fuller versions of it with more of a lead up are more surprising, but time is money. So check it out. James Burke is fascinating, or was fascinating. Honestly, I don't know if he's still alive. He might be like 100 years old. Let me check right now. I'm not even going to pause it. James Burke. Oh, he's 87 years old. Does not seem to be departed from this mortal coil. Historian of science, author, producer of fine television. So yeah, check that stuff out. On with the show. Falsifiability. It's a Wikipedia article. Check it out because it's how the scientific method works. It's not something the casual user should be aware of, but as more and more fiction comes our way, you should know how things work, how you can do an inductive proof, induction, and other methods of verifying or measuring or comparing, deriving conclusions. It's essentially, the whole article covers how you go from observation to scientific law. So falsifiability is in there. So I just thought that would be interesting if you are interested in this topic. And as I will state again later, Wikipedia is always a great place to begin your journey in the search for truth or facts, if you like. Rarely is it the end. Enough of those links. Let's get started so we can get to the end. Yipes, I'm going to assume anyone listening to this has consumed the presidential debate between former President Trump and current Vice President Harris. It was on the 10th of September, 2024. I don't really want to talk about it too much, so I'm not going to. But there are two things that I will bring up. On the one hand, Vice President Harris referred to at least two Trump sound bites from one was from during his presidency, Charlottesville chaos and unfortunate turn of events there. And one was from more recently at an auto manufacturing plant, I believe. They've both been debunked for context. I mean, he did say them, but they are used in a way that's somewhat disingenuous. In repeating them in the debate, they received some light to cast a shadow on Trump. I will say now, even though I don't want this to be a political commentary, I'm not a fan of the Trump or the GOP. So So casting a shadow on him. I believe this is fair politics. So I don't believe they fact checked it during, but after, many comments were made. And in fact, Trump himself said, these things have been debunked. And then that was taken out of context by some YouTuber goofballs. So Trump is a sloppy speaker. He's sloppy with rhetoric. He will make comments, but they don't always make sense, or he will. So in this case, he was saying something was debunked. He meant the two quotes: emergency vehicle production by a street. So the one was that there were very fine people on both sides concerning protests that turned violent. If you actually read the transcript of that statement that he made, if you read the whole thing, it's not as bad as it becomes if you trim it down to just very fine people on both sides where there was violent conflict. And so that one's pretty straightforward, but it doesn't get, it's so much more difficult to read a transcript when you can just hear the 5-second version. So when he says that's been debunked, that's almost certainly what he meant. If you recall, around the time, he did a really awful job trying to explain himself when he was questioned on what he meant by that. So that's his problem. He's not good at explaining much. And then the other one was he was at the auto plant and he said, more emergency vehicles. And he said something like, if he doesn't win the election, it'll be a bloodbath. He was speaking about the automotive industry, that there would be more imports from China, perhaps, which is excelling in electric vehicle production. And some Chinese vehicles are competitive and are in America, although some policies have made their numbers limited. But either way, it wasn't in his statement, it was not a violent bloodbath. Now, it's easy to shape these and turn them into out of context attacks on his character, because there are so many other things that are actual valid in context attacks on his character. So you can't fix his sloppy rhetoric, but he certainly says things and does bad things. But this is how the game is played. So those are sort of the easy, low-hanging fruit, even though they're not really completely true. They send the message. People get it. They go, yes, yes, yes. So I would prefer good faith characterization. For example, some comments were made about protests that turned violent that were not strong enough. You could say something like that, perhaps. But you could also just say, hey, can you explain how tariffs work in detail? That would be the same sort of thing, attacking someone's, in this case, ability to explain an economic topic or not. But it would be a valid question rather than, but really, at the end of the day, politics is politics. All is fair in love, war, and politics. Since there's no shortage of material, short attention spans demand simple examples. You go with what people have heard, even though not completely accurate. So you craft a fiction based on fact. Just leave out a few things. What is it? It's a lie by omission. That's what I was going to say. On the other hand, so the one hand was Harris. On the other hand, Trump made references to immigrants eating cats and dogs and made false assertions about legality of certain medical procedures on newborn infants, while barely touching on the policy and apparent attitude changes that Harris has demonstrated over the years. There was plenty of material there, but he went off the rails. There was actual, factual, historically retrievable, referenceable statements, positions, actions changed over the years. Explain that, right? So you can put the person on their heels, if you like, and I don't mean that as footwear. I mean, you put someone back on their heels, that means they're not leaning forward ready to attack, they're leaning back, more defensive, right? So I think on both sides, there could have been better arguments that were more based on, they would have been more good faith arguments. But again, this is politics. So I actually am against fact-checking by the moderators, for example, or maybe like an official fact-check person, team, referees. I think personal attacks that take statements out of context and whatnot, that's politics. That's boxing. That's in the ring. You are duking it out. When you start making comments about state laws in other states or practices or accusing people from different countries of doing things based on their race or by their country of origin, that really veers into fiction. And those are the sorts of things that I think fact checks are valid. But if you're going to take someone's statements or actions out of context, you're going to try to craft a narrative to put them on their heels, then that's the nature of the politics. And the debate can include, because debates are performative anyway, can include that sort of sparring. I personally think that's valid, but in keeping with the notion that sometimes the facts presented are fiction. So if people understand that, maybe they would understand that, some world wrestling is not real. So about that fact checking, checking truth is nothing new. It is the basis for the U.S. justice system, for example, with courts and attorneys and ethics rules and occasional corruption, some or all of these. But there is a notion of truth and verification mixed in with the motivated reasoning, and I've talked about this in previous episodes. Of course, motivated reasoning, by the way, that's where you sort of cherry pick facts and you craft a narrative to present your case that is aligned with your agenda, right? So defense attorney wants to prove that their client is not guilty. They are motivated to reason and present a case along with that reasoning to a jury or the judge or both, and try to convince them that their client is not guilty. The prosecutor, on the other hand, is motivated to present a case based on reasoning that they are guilty. So these are fine. This is how the game works. And there's a saying, there's your truth, my truth, and the real truth, or some variation of that. So but there's an appeals process, and that can be quite lengthy. There's in a more perfect world, there would be fewer errors. The number of errors might approach zero when it comes to mishandling of evidence, when it comes to corruption in various participants, bad actors in the process, etc. Approaching zero someday, but only asymptotically. But the fact is, there is a process in place, evidentiary procedures, cross-examination, expert witnesses. You can really get into the details of facts. It is fairly ridiculous to configure a debate, if I can touch on that one more time, between two or more people. Expect them to memorize details and present them in a performative way, because that's what debates are now, and then grade them on the recollection of facts. So basically the challenge is remember a bunch of stuff, including your attack vectors and your zingers and your funny lines and all that. So get up there and, cane and top hat and do a little dance. I'm kind of anti. I also did this with Debate Bros, the whole YouTube debate culture. It's performative, right? It's all about beating the other person, putting them down, making them look stupid, etc. So same thing. But then you grade them on whether what they said was true, and you can pick apart, well, he actually said there were good people on both sides that were not there to protest. Things went south. Her positions are based on, at some point representing state, then moving to a national role in a vice president. You have different perspectives. There are ways to counter accusations. You can start pulling apart numbers and how many millions of this and how many thousands of that, and what was the net impact, and what were the unemployment numbers during this period, and gas prices, all these things. These are all facts that could be recalled and checked. But to expect people to remember those and then ding them, grade them poorly if they are off by an order of magnitude, or they switched some numbers around, and there were 43 million people. No, I mean 24 million. So it's sort of unreasonable. As a bit of foreshadowing, I will suggest now the debate participants should be allowed. They should absolutely have notes, which are inspected prior, perhaps photographed and shared with the public after the debate, but which can contain anything they need to make their presentation. They should be able to make their presentation the way they want to. It should be in the form that they want. They should be able to use their pieces of data any way that they want. They can write down some jokes or zingers if they want. But anyone who's ever taken an open book test, now you're not testing memory, you're testing understanding. You're testing analysis, you're testing exposition. Can you explain your position? Can you describe why these numbers are where they are? So you're actually making those facts transparent, right? You should be able to, like, if someone writes down a fictitious number, like unemployment was 48%, you're like, that's not true. You wrote that down and it's not true. So that would be shared with the public. So you'd have a built-in checksum, like, you should write down facts on this paper. And then if you say numbers or recall facts that were on the paper, on the notes that you have, but you restated them in a different way, you can actually say, why did you choose to change what you brought in for this performance? So I'm a big fan of notes. It could be one page, it could be a legal pad, it could be no limit, whatever. It's the modern era. And then of course there are always, hey, that person remembered more than the other one. They must have had an earpiece or some other cheating mechanism. Maybe it's just better memory. So it's tricky. I think you remove a lot of those considerations or suspicions when you just say, hey, bring in notes and we're going to take a picture of each page, or we're going to make them public after. And that way when people say, that didn't sound right, well, that was the number they wrote down, and it turns out that number is correct. That would work. So facts as part of a performative debate would change, I think, the nature of the debate, and would be more about, again, analysis, exposition, strategy, policy, not so much about a zinger. Well, you mean zingers are not going to go anywhere. Again, that's politics. But I think basing the conversation, the debate, on facts that you can bring with you, 99% of the time you're not going to be expected to remember, which county had the most of this, or which. That's a lot of stuff to carry around in your head. You should be able to explain it. You shouldn't have to remember it. I'm going to get some tea here. Hang on. Now imagine anytime you question an assertion of some kind, and I hope you do all the time, frequently at least, where do you look to determine for yourself what is fact and what is fiction? Assuming you don't have a legal pad, you don't have someone tracking down facts for you, you don't have a team. Famously, if you've ever been to a speech and debate competition, no comment, there are people that bring in file folders, boxes of file folders. So they bring evidence, they bring, assuming that there's some topic known ahead of time. Or if you've ever been an attorney, you know that they carry their case files. They carry a whole bunch of references. They carry all kinds of stuff. The modern era, some of that could be digital, but bottom line, your iPad breaks, you got to have your documents, you're there in court. So having facts at hand and not basing argument, debate, any of this on memory is silly. You're testing the wrong thing. So assessment by proxy, though, what happens then? We often hand off any sort of fact checking to others. How often have you listened to a debate or listened to a presentation of some sort or read something in an article and said, that doesn't sound right. Let me check that. We trust our favorite news media outlets, our favorite reporters, pundits, talking heads. We may find great comfort in confirmation bias. We may enjoy hearing that they agree with us, and that's nice. It's nice to be right, which allows fact and fiction to mingle, right? Some of the facts, oh yeah, that does sound, I believe that. And then you pile on some fiction. there are different variations of this theme. You can look up the Mott and Bailey. It's not really a fallacy, but I think it has been called that, the Mott and Bailey fallacy, or I don't think it's a fallacy. Mott, M-O-T-T-E, and Bailey. I'll let you read that if you want. It's an interesting thing to understand and to maybe put to use. Fact checking should not be denigrated. You should not be embarrassed. You should not feel attacked. Well, maybe a little bit, but it shouldn't be insulting. Of course, it will tend to be, but getting something wrong, if that ruins your whole day, then maybe you're doing it wrong, because you should want to be right. Maybe this is normative. You should want to be right, and if you're not and someone can correct you, then now you are right next time. Presumably, we are asking for facts. We want facts. Wouldn't it be better if during a debate they were spitting facts and not making up stuff or recalling the wrong thing or talking about eating pets when it doesn't seem to be factual? So we're asking for facts or some version of a truth based on facts as they're available. Sometimes the facts are changing. Sometimes things will come and go. Maybe a rolling update as more facts enter and some facts leave. So why is fact checking treated like an affront? Case in point, during the, not so long ago, during the shooting, October 1st shooting here in Vegas, unfortunately, the last name of the person is Paddock, and there's an F1 Paddock that, so that probably is a bad thing for bad memories. But there was like a daily or hourly update from the Sheriff Joe Lombardo, who is now the governor of Nevada. And I'm not a fan, but I wasn't a complete fan of Sisolak either, so it doesn't matter. I don't like anybody. But he would come out and give these updates, and people were frustrated because, well, yesterday you said this. Well, because this is a completely live investigation, pretty high profile. Like, this was a substantial and very bad event that took place. We are telling you what we know, and in 1 hour from now, we may know something else. So these are not fiction so much as they are current facts, which may counter something that was known but not quite correct or verified or validated. So that's a tough challenge. We ask for facts, and if we are given them and then they need to be corrected, we should accept the fact, or we should maybe assume, or we should hope that we are still receiving facts, and that facts could be subject to revision based on new information. I don't even want to talk about the pandemic, but, facts, science is tricky. So the rolling updates will sometimes change, not what we heard yesterday. It can be stupid. I'm also not a fan of Fauci and his communication or lack of, or miscommunication, possibly discommunication concerning the use of personal protective equipment, PPE, just a variety of things. So an understanding that veracity will sometimes include changes to what was known yesterday or last week based on what's known today. So facts, eventually you converge on facts when all of the data is in, but occasionally you have to give updates. Now, if you said your house is on fire, you should get out of your house, and then tomorrow comes along and they're like, oh, it turns out it was arson and somebody set fire to your house. Well, you still had to get out of the house. Now there's more information. You know that a fire was set. I bring up house fires every once in a while because that's how I ended up in Vegas. House fire. But the fact is, facts will appear to change sometimes. That's probably a misrepresentation. If the idea is to be factual, new information may lead to facts becoming more or less correct. This is just the way it is. Sometimes a macabre example, we don't have to go the full, yesterday the headline was 10 people injured, and today the headline is 12 people injured. Yeah, but yesterday you said it was 10. That's correct. That was a fact yesterday. Today the fact is now 12. This is how the world works. We pass the task of fact-checking, though, to others. Soon it may be completely automated. Then what? So in a structured way, someone could verify and fact-check that, yes, indeed, yes, indeed, 10 people were injured yesterday in this event, 12 people today. That means 10 yesterday, 2 more for a total of 12. What you will often see in clickbait headlines, 12 more, or more people injured. They won't even put the number. So you won't know. You have to read the article. So it brings you in. So this is a motivation for the way information is presented. It can make it very tricky. People have come to expect that. Sensational headlines are not new. Unfortunately, we are even allowing a proxy when we search using the common search engines. We know what they are. We know what the main one is. The ordering of a production by a street. The ordering of a search engine result page, also called a SERP, S-E-R-P, is one of the most studied pieces of human behavior in history. You can go ahead and fact check that if you want. Might be true. And it is rare that someone looking for an answer will skip to the second page, the third page, the 10th page, pretty much sticking to the first half of the first page, right? Do you ever reach the bottom? First or second answer, that's what people go with. Probably the one that sounds like it will match their own belief system or preconceived notion. What about fiction? So the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks was on the 11th, of course. That's yesterday as I'm recording this. It's come and gone yet again. And we can look back through the pandemic lens at what may have happened back then. And I've used that term a few times. I used it when I was talking about my recollections in my Quaggling Sand audio program. The pandemic lens, where everyone was an expert. Suddenly everyone understands epidemiology, virology, immunology. Crazy. So back then, everyone understood metallurgy and flight characteristics of aircraft versus missiles and the use of airphones and cell phones at different altitudes and whether they should have worked, and fake airports and mystery landings and disappearing people, and the list goes on and on. So there's always the possibility that a story is being told, and in the absence of facts, fiction fits the bill. Sometimes things change again over 23 years, different versions of exactly what happened at the different, WTC 1, 2, damage to other buildings, the infamous no plane hit World Trade Center 7, and to be honest, that one's still a little weird. It's 23 years ago though, so who's even thinking about it? Well, some people are, I promise. So what if we are not told what changed? What if there is new information, but nobody gets around to reporting it? The 9/11 Commission report was available. Still is. I put a link to it in the Quaggling Sand episode. So you can read through their assessment at the time. Sometimes the facts don't fit together as they become more clear. You can, if you want to go way back to 1963 and then the year, what was it, a year, 18 months or something, when the Warren Report and all the evidentiary volumes of the Warren Report came out, and then the many iterations on continued research and analysis and new evidence and document releases and everything. So there's always the assessment and then the second story or maybe the 10th story. So there's always some sort of a fiction that's presented initially to quell concerns or to craft public opinion. Edward Bernays, check out his book on public opinion, propaganda, all that stuff. Good to know. His uncle was Sigmund Freud. So group psychology, social psych, all manner of fiction is spread as fast as we can scroll through TikTok videos and whatnot today. Judged for entertainment value rather than veracity, I would wager. I mean, what do I know? As Abraham Lincoln famously said, fiction travels several times around the sun while fact is putting its pants on. And you can fact check that quote too. You should. Fiction is often incomplete or overly complete, and usually quite satisfying. To know the entire story with some insider information, it sounds completely plausible. It connects a few things that you were solely suspicious of. Aha, I knew they, capital T, they were doing something like that. Perhaps maybe that goes through your mind. I knew it. I knew it. Confirmation bias. Fiction can provide answers before the facts are available, which makes it convenient and delicious. To know now. Quite satisfying. And once we are full and drifting off to a blissful slumber, knowing the truth, fiction or otherwise, we are less interested in facts. Facts are bitter and sour. Fiction is sweet and tasty. And that's really, when you really think about it, really think about it, doesn't the fiction always have that certain something? And if the true story, if the true facts ever come out, you're like, that would not make a good movie. Crazy. We're on the final section, I promise. I'm talking to my voice. What to do? The saying goes, it must be true. I read it on the internet. And then George W. Bush came along and it became plural. I read it on the internet. And that saying has been around for quite a while, quite a long time, decades now. So it must be true. Ranking search results in the old way. Now a specific response to an ignorant query can be, well, let me clarify that. Ranking search engine results is the old way. I think I said in the old way, is the old way. The ranking of search engine results used to be based on incoming links and what do they call it, Google juice or something. Like they tried to judge validity and quality of information based on incoming links and the value of those incoming links that were based on incoming links to those incoming links. So they had the whole page rank thing and all that. And then a long time ago, when they stopped being against being evil, they were like, oh, PageRank we don't really do that anymore. So they have many more switches and dials that they can fiddle with. And you can boost, or if you're into electrical engineering, you can boost and buck. So you can amplify or de-amplify or attenuate where certain results show up based on any number of factors. You can tweak things here and there. So if the search engine company, Google or otherwise, wants to present certain results, wants to hide certain results, that's completely adjustable all the time. That's not a surprise. So back then you would be pointing to actual content. You would just have to leave out the stuff that would talk about, thermite or placed charges, demolition charges, or whatever. Like, oh, that stuff is probably fake. And it probably is. But we'll just point them to the 9/11 Commission report and be done with it. We'll make that the first 10 results because it is published in a few different places. So why not? Now you can have a specific response to an ignorant query. You don't have to know exactly what you're looking for. You might have some idea, or you may have some idea what you're looking for. You just need to read about it on the internet. Then it'll be true. So you can generate that to keep you happy. You can craft a query of your ChatGPT or Llama or Mason, or there's too many. I could make up a name and that'd be true too. And it will give you an answer and you'll say, oh, that sounds right. It may not be a fact. It may not be based on fact, but it will be the answer you are looking for. It will make you feel like that's what I thought. It might write an email to someone for you and you'll be like, that's probably what I would have said. Then you won't even check it. And then they'll get the email like, what is this? Was this written by we know. Will you check for fact or fiction in these responses? If so, where would you begin your search? Where would you even start? It may soon be a lost art to seek facts and construct a true assessment of whatever it is at hand. What are you asking about? Tell me about Haitian immigrants to America eating pets. And it will probably come up with something that will convince you that that's what I knew it. That's just a topical. Hopefully, when you're listening to this in the distant future, or when I am in the distant past for you, you'll be like, "Who said that?" Oh, King Trump. That's right. I heard about that. Remembering and learning from history is going to be the old ways. Maybe learning from the present will also fade away. It's always going to be a good idea to know how to do that. But will your favorite chat GPT or other client tell you that? If you ask, should I remember history? Why bother? I'm here. Or are you more likely to hear this advice from your grandparents? Don't forget to read. Look it up. I got the encyclopedia. Nah, I just typed in a query. If you are inclined, and by the way, the query problem is going to be interesting because the search results may not be the writings of subject matter experts or historians who have done research. It will be some weird large language model generated text, not even really a summary. It'll be a statistical response to whatever your query was. It will seem correct because it will have enough facts sprinkled in with a little bit of fiction or some hallucination or whatever comes in the near term, the next 5 or 10 years. We'll see how things go. But you may not be reading anything that is based on fact. It will be some sort of a constructed response, a mixture of whatever will make you happy. Do I sound cynical? I hope so. If you are inclined, consider treating important questions as a scientific experiment. You can look at that falsifiability document on Wikipedia as a starting point. You can create like, what could be a possible response? And then how would you go about fact checking, verifying? If you asked a chat program to sum 2 numbers or 100 numbers, and it came up with something that was like, wait a minute, that's off by 3. You would know there would be a mathematical proof that you could conduct and determine an error and so on. That's much harder to do with the written word or with factual references from the distant past through history and so on. But it would be interesting to know what to know when you're examining these things. Otherwise, you might just take it at face value. Famously, the Google, what became Gemini, when asked to generate images of the so-called founding fathers of America, came up with a creative interpretation of ethnic look. I don't know what to say there. The AI was creative with their ethnic backgrounds, I suppose. They were not based on fact. They were creative images, and someone may have taken those. Now, not that it shouldn't really be an insult or anything, like, oh, that's just not correct. Okay. But it's odd that someone not knowing better might take that as a fact. So be ready for that into the future. So treating these things as scientific experiments, knowing to question them, everything should be falsifiable. Flip through the Wikipedia article, falsifiability, like I said. Read on from there. Do some thinking, please. If you do fall back to asking ChatGPT or some similar tool and whatever exists in the near term, I just read about Strawberry is the name of the code name, I guess, of their new model. There was a ChatGPT 4 letter O more recently, but whatever comes next, whether it's Strawberry or whatever, if you use these tools to answer your questions or give you directions or ingredients or recipes or whatever you do, don't be a ridiculous person and ask it to make the response fun or sexy. Haha, I'm going to post this on. No, be very worried and ask it to make it true. See what happens. So this was not an ideal episode because my voice is killing me, but this is a topic that will always be of interest because this will only be more of a concern into the future, whether it's person telling truth or lie or some combination thereof with an agenda. If there are weird rules concerning, like I said, I personally think debates would be infinitely more valuable if it was not a matter of remembering and zingers and then, oh, you lied, right? Start out with the notes. In college, Harvey Mudd famously open book tests, honor code. You could take a test home, take home test. True thing. Just don't cheat. Okay. Take home test, closed book, no notes. Those happened. But if you allow people to bring their data, their information, they can make a presentation that is sensible and analytical and can be examined, interrogated, cross-examined without saying, oh, you missed that value. Oh, you switched those 2 numbers. Oh, I never said that. Come prepared with the quotes and the numbers and the dates and all that stuff and argue on theory, practice, policy, viewpoints, exposition in general. What a fantastic world that would be. Fantastic is the key word. Anyway, my voice is barely hanging on, so I'm gonna wrap it up. Think about it. Maybe if I start having guests, this would be a cool topic to discuss what people think about debate formats or how you use ChatGPT or your modern AI, large language model. What is it? Retrieval augmented generation. Is that what it is? Whatever the tools are, every day there seems to be some new thing. How are you using those? Are you getting facts out of it? Or is it a sleight of hand? Is it hand waved? That's one of my concerns in general. We're going to forget how to do some things that can be automated away, and the AI will soon be like, I got you. I'll write that for you. And then, like, what? What is this? Who wrote this? So that's where I'm going to leave it. Don't forget, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Check out the various things that are eventually. I will update Ko-fi.com. I keep saying this, but everything I'm working on is Iterate for Vegas. I need to do more cool, just fun things or that align with my own projects like these. And that will come. This too shall pass. Is that fact or fiction? Remains to be seen. Thank you for listening as always. Thank you for putting up with my voice. I know I don't like to. Till next week, let's get some fresh air. Get that smoke out of here. Bye-bye.